What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stack. Welcome back if you've been here before. I'm Neon Mushroom, and today we've got some cEDH content for you guys. Nothing crazy before the game, other than if you missed the giveaway, we're announcing that this weekend who won for both the patrons and the normal subscriber base. You guys, each pool won a playmat that's unique to this specific giveaway. We're only making the two. They're here. They're locked in my mailbox. More about that this weekend, but they'll be shipped out in a very short amount of time. That said, the quick caveat with this being cEDH content is a lot of us are learning new decks. We're kind of dipping our toes into this format. I think this is probably the third cEDH piece of content we've ever made, and this is the first one where I really feel comfortable saying everyone's actually playing like cEDH decks. Maybe myself not so much because I am playing Galazeth Prismari, but I think this deck might have some legs, so we'll see. That said, that's everything you should need to know, so let's go ahead and take a look at who's playing, what they decided to play, the opening hands they decided to keep, in addition to our normal upkeep stuff.
As always, if you like this show or any of our other shows on YouTube, liking, sharing, and subscribing helps us out immensely. If you like our content and don't mind that extra mile, you can always support us over on Patreon, over at patreon.com/mtgthestack.
Just like you, Ryan Foley.
Comment down below any of your thoughts and feelings, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Alrighty, first up there's me, and I'm playing my Galazeth Prismari Stax Breach list. This is a list of my own, although I did loosely base it on Play to Win's list. If you didn't see that, they dropped a video 2 or 3 weeks ago featuring a Galazeth Stax list. The idea for the deck is fairly simple, and it wants to kind of function like Urza. You use your Galazeth in order to turn on your artifacts, typically Trinisphere, Winter Orb, and Static Orb. That way you can tap them at your whim. That makes them break parity. Your opponents are all being staxed, and you're not. The deck's finish is fairly simple. I want to use the classic Brain Freeze, Underworld Breach, and Lotus Petal Loop. Typically this deck would want to play Lion's Eye Diamond. I just have not added the card yet, as I do not have the proxy ready. I'm keeping a 7-card hand, including Command Tower, Polluted Delta, Wooded Foothills, the Brain Freeze, Storm-Kiln Artist, a Loyal Apprentice, and a Jeweled Lotus. Next up we have Max returning to the channel, and he's playing his Yisan pod deck. The idea for this deck is fairly simple. It implements some Stax pieces, but generally wants to use Yisan in conjunction with something like a Wirewood Symbiote and a Gaia's Cradle, or even a Seaborn Muse, which you can get with the Yisan itself in order to pod all the way up to something like a Craterhoof Behemoth, winning the game with damage all on one turn. Max is keeping a 7-card hand, and this one is an absolute banger. He's got a Veil of Summer, a Wirewood Symbiote, a Crop Rotation, Mana Crypt, Utopia Sprawl, a Thorn of Amethyst, and a basic Forest. Next up, we've got Calvin playing Jeska Tymna Mad Farm, and for those of you who have been following Calvin's Mad Farm list, you'll notice that he changed his Dargo to Jeska. This is a pretty simple evolution of the deck. He just wants to be able to generate infinite mana to kill with Jeska rather than looping the Dargo, and the idea of the deck is simple. It wants to use Tymna as a farm piece to gather as many resources as it can to set up a turn where he wins all in one turn, usually by generating infinite mana. Calvin's also keeping a 7-card hand, including Wooded Foothills, a Godless Shrine, Enlightened Tutor, Ad Nauseam, Dualcaster Mage, Underworld Breach, and a Mana Vault. Last but certainly not least, we have Ajdin playing Korvold Demon Chain, and this is not his original list, obviously. This is going to be the actual Korvold Demon Chain you can find on Moxfield. This deck was developed by a couple of people. He's just playing that list verbatim. The plan for this deck is fairly straightforward. This is a very fast, proactive food chain build that wants to use food chain and squee to generate infinite mana, and then use Korvold to gain access to his entire deck. From there, he can win in a myriad of different ways. We should have a pretty good game here because Ajdin makes 4 of us keeping 7-card hands, and his is a pretty good one. He's got a Yawgmoth's Will, a Vexing Shusher, Jeweled Lotus, Arbor Elf, a Blood Crypt, a Taiga, and a Bayou. Probably don't look at your hand yet because it's card game time, and we're playing, kind of trying to play cEDH.
You're first.
All right, Calvin gets 3.
I get this one.
All right. All that matters is Calvin's so burnt out. 1, 2, 3, flip. Ah, you fucking good.
I'm not next.
All right, I won card game, so that puts me on the play. I'll draw my card for turn. I'll start with a Command Tower. Then I'll immediately follow it up with a Jeweled Lotus, and that gives me 4 mana that I need to crack the Lotus and play my commander, Galazeth Prismari. He'll trigger when he enters, and I'll drop a treasure token. Then I'm going to sacrifice the treasure for mana because I want to cast a non-instant or sorcery. I'm playing Sensei's Divining Top. With that, I decide that's enough, and I'll pass to Max, who draws his card for turn, and he's going to play a basic Forest as his land for turn. He'll follow it up with some fast mana of his own and a Mana Crypt, Then I'll tap his forest for green, and I'll enchant it with a Utopia Sprawl. He's not finished yet, he'll tap his crypt for 2, and I'll play Thorn of Amethyst, making all non-creatures cost 1 more to play. After that, he'll pass to Calvin, who will draw his card, play a Wooded Foothills, and simply pass to Ajdin, who will draw his card for turn, and then Ajdin is going to go ahead and drop a Taiga. After that, he's going to tap his Taiga for mana, so he can pay for the tax on his own Jeweled Lotus. After that, he has no further action, so he'll pass the turn to me. I'll untap and draw my card for turn, and then in my first main phase, I'll drop Polluted Delta as my land for turn. I'll immediately fetch, losing a life, dropping to 39, and search my deck for a basic island. After that, I'm going to tap for 2 mana, and I'm going to cast a Loyal Apprentice. At this point, I want to move into combat. I control my commander, so my Loyal Apprentice will make a Thopter, and I'm going to decide to attack Max with both my commander and the Apprentice for a total of 5 damage. After this point, I have no further action, so we'll pass the turn back to Max, who has a Mana Crypt trigger. He'll roll, lose 3 life, then draw his card for turn. In Max's first main phase, he's going to drop a Strip Mine as his land for turn. Then he's going to tap his Enchanted Forest for 2 green and his Mana Crypt, leaving a green floating to cast Yisan, the Wanderer Bard. Then, because of his Thorn of Amethyst, he has to use the floating green and the Strip Mine to cast Crop Rotation. He'll decide to sacrifice his Strip Mine and search his library for a surprise, it's a Gaia's Cradle. Thanks to Yisan, his Cradle can tap for 1 green, so we'll do that immediately and cast a Wirewood Symbiote. With nothing else, he'll try to pass to Calvin, who instead will fetch, search his library for a land, in this case he's going to get a Badlands, comes into play, he'll shuffle up, and then we'll go to Calvin's turn where he'll untap and draw his card for turn. In Calvin's first main phase, he's going to shock in a Godless Shrine, going down to 37 life, and with no further actions, he'll pass to Ajdin. Ajdin will untap and draw his card for turn, then he's going to drop a Bayou as his land for turn. After that, he's going to tap both of his lands for mana and crack that Jeweled Lotus to cast his commander, Korvold, Fey Curse King, who triggers, so he has to sacrifice a permanent. He's going to sacrifice his Taiga, which is going to allow him to put a +1/+1 counter on his commander, and draw a card. Out of options, he's going to pass the turn to me, so I'll untap and draw my card for turn. At this point, I'm going to drop a Wooded Foothills as my land for turn, then I'm going to head straight into combat and trigger my Loyal Apprentice, making a 1/1 Thopter token. Then I'm going to declare attackers, I'm going to swing at Max with my commander, and since Calvin's wide open, I'll hit him with my Apprentice. Neither of them have blocks, so Max drops to 29, Calvin goes to 35, and then in my second main phase, I'll fetch my Wooded Foothills, and I'll go grab a basic mountain. Then I finally decide it's time to do some stacks, so I'm going to pay for 3, paying 1 extra for the Thorn, and I'm going to cast a Winter Orb. Then I'll pass to Max.
Outstanding.
You know what? I only got 1 permanent on tab, so joke's on you.
Moving to Max's turn, he untaps and has to resolve the Mana Crypt trigger, so he's going to roll, take 3 damage, and then draw his card for turn. In Max's first main phase, he'll tap the Cradle and the Mana Crypt for a total of 4 mana. He'll leave 1 green floating and activate Yisan, the Wanderer Bard. He's going to search his library for a 1-drop. This time he's going to go grab an Arbor Elf, a key synergy piece with his Wirewood Symbiote. Then he'll use the floating green to play a Caustic Caterpillar, and with no further actions, he's going to pass to Calvin, who will untap, upkeep, and draw his card for turn. Calvin's going to drop an Exotic Orchard in his first main phase, and then he's going to tap for 1 white, and he's going to cast Sarah Ascendant. With nothing else, he decides that's plenty, so he's going to pass the turn back to Ajdin. Ajdin will untap, draw his card for turn, then he's going to tap his Bayou for mana in order to cast his own copy of Arbor Elf. After that, he'll drop a Blood Crypt, shocking it into play, dropping down to 38 life. Then he's going to tap it for mana to pay the tax on his Lotus Petal from the Thorn of Amethyst. After this point, he's going to tap and sacrifice his Lotus Petal to make a mana, and that's going to trigger his commander so he gets a +1/+1 counter and draws a card. Then he's going to use that floating mana in order to play a Chrome Mox. He's going to imprint Yawgmoth's Will underneath it, so it taps for black. After that, he's going to go into combat, and he wants to attack me with his commander. It triggers when he swings, so he's going to sacrifice his Blood Crypt, his commander's going to get a counter, and Ajdin's going to draw a card. I'm simply going to move to blocks and block with a Thopter, and then Ajdin decides he has no further plays, so I'm going to tap Winter Orb for mana at the end of his turn. Then I'll go to untap, but before I draw, I'm going to activate my Senses Divining Top. I'll look at the top 3 cards in my library, put them back in an order of my choosing, then I'll draw my card for turn. I'm going to forego any actions on my first main phase to make a Thopter in combat and then go to declare attacks. I'm going to attack Max with my Galazeth, putting 3 more commander damage on him, and then I'll offer the trade with Ajdin for my Loyal Apprentice, which he doesn't take obviously. He'll take 2, and then we'll go to my second main phase, where I'm going to tap for 2 and I'll cast a Goblin Engineer. When it enters play, it has a triggered ability, so I'll grab a Lotus Petal out of my deck and put it into my graveyard. After that, I have no further action, so I'll just pass the turn back to Max. He'll untap, trigger Mana Crypt, he'll roll, but this time he wins the roll. Then he's going to draw his card for turn, and in his first main phase, he'll activate Arbor Elf to untap that Enchanted Forest. He'll tap the Forest for 2, and then he's going to tap the Mana Crypt as well, leaving 1 green floating, and he's going to activate Yisan the Wanderer Bard. While that triggers on the stack, I do have a response. I'll tap for 2, and I'm going to cast Brain Freeze, targeting myself. I'll explain why I did this after the game, but that resolves, and then Max is going to actually go grab a Collector Oof, which is why I decided to respond to the activation of Yisan. After that, Max is going to tap his Gaia's Cradle for 5 mana, leaving him with a total of 6 floating mana because he tapped that Forest as well. Then he's going to use the Wirewood Symbiote to untap his Yisan by bouncing Arbor Elf. Then he's going to activate his Yisan one more time. This time he gets to search his library for a 3-drop. In this case, he's going to search, and he's going to go grab a Manglehorn. When it enters play, we're going to see some pretty tight play here. He destroys his own Thorn of Amethyst, so he can tap out to cast Eldritch Evolution. He'll sacrifice Manglehorn, and then he gets to go get a 5-drop from his library. In this case, he's going to go for a Seedborn Muse. With nothing else, Max is simply going to pass the turn to Calvin, but on Calvin's on-tap, Max will also on-tap. Calvin draws his card for turn, and then he's just going to simply pass the turn back to Ajdin. But Max has an action, obviously. Before he can do that, he's going to activate Yisan the Wanderer Bard. This time he gets to go get a 4-drop, and he wants a Thought Knot Seer. He's going to target Calvin, so Calvin does have a response. He's going to tap his Badlands for a red, and then he's going to cast Lightning Bolt targeting Yisan. I have a response.
So your Lightning Bolt's targeting Yisan.
Yep.
And I can't win without access to my artifacts.
Collector Roof.
I see.
I straight up can't. So I'm trying to weigh, like, if I let this happen, how much further does Calvin pull ahead? Does it matter to me? Because I am nerfed. I'm down to 3 lands. No, I think if I let this happen, it stops Max from just winning the game, but it also puts me in last place and I can't catch back up. I'm going to cast Deflect and Swat. And I'm going to have Lightning Bolt target Collector Oof.
If you're thinking to yourself that this is a questionable play, you're probably right, but it happens. After the bolt resolves, the Thought Knot Seer trigger resolves, and Max is going to look at Calvin's hand. He sees an Ad Nauseam, which ends up being the best target for Max, so Calvin is going to exile the Ad Nauseam from his hand. After that, Calvin's going to pick up his hand, and we can actually move to Ajdin's turn, where both Ajdin and Max will untap, and Ajdin will draw his card for turn. In Ajdin's first main phase, he's going to tap his land for a mana and his Chrome Mox so he can cast Survival of the Fittest. Then he's going to tap his Arbor Elf in order to untap Bayou, and then he's going to tap his Bayou again for a green, this time to activate his Survival of the Fittest. That'll have him discarding a creature to search his library for a creature. He wants to discard a lot more elves and go pick up a Dockside Extortionist. He'll add the Extortionist to his hand, then he's going to go to combat and attack Max with Korvold. He's going to sacrifice Survival to put a +1/+1 counter on the Korvold and draw a card. Max has no block, so he takes 8 commander damage, and with nothing else, Ajdin's going to pass the turn to me. But Max has an action before that can happen. He's going to activate Yisan. Now he searches his library for a 5-drop, and in this case, he's going to get Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. Then we'll move to my turn, where both Max and I untap, and before I draw my card for turn, I'm going to activate Sensei's Divining Top. That's going to have me looking at the top 3 cards in my library, rearranging them in an order of my choosing, and putting them back on top. After I decide my order and draw my card for turn, Max has an action after I draw but before my first main phase. He's going to activate Yisan the Wandering Bard, and he's going to go search for a 6-drop this time. He's going to wind up getting Bane of Progress, something I should have seen coming. When it enters play, it's going to destroy all artifacts and get +1/+1 for each artifact destroyed this way. My response is to put my top back on top, and then he will destroy a total of 6 artifacts and enchantments, so his Bane of Progress will be an 8/8. After that, I'll play a Prismatic Vista as my land for turn, and I need to fetch, which is going to have me shuffling away my Sensei's Divining Top, unfortunately. I'll drop to 37, get a basic island into play, and then I'm going to go to combat, make a Thopter, and I'm going to turn my commander sideways at Max. Max has no block, so he goes up to 12 commander damage for me. Then, in my second main phase, I'm going to tap for red, and I'm going to activate my Goblin Engineer. I'm going to sacrifice the Thopter I just made to buy back an artifact, and in this case, I'm just going to get my Winter Orb back. Because of Ashaya, all Max's creatures are also lands, so he'll only be able to untap one of his permanents per turn. After that, I'll tap for 2, and I'm going to cast a Merchant Scroll. That'll have me searching my library for a blue instant. In this case, I'm going to get a Fierce Guardianship. I'll add that to my hand, and then I'll just pass the turn back to Max, where he'll choose to untap his commander. Then he's going to draw his card for turn. In Max's first main phase, he's going to tap his Cradle for a whole bunch of mana, use one of it to play an Arbor Elf, then he's going to use 3 to activate Yisan the Wanderer Bard, and this time he's going to get a 7-drop. In this case, he wants Kogla, the Titan Ape.
We're going to blow up your Winter Orb.
King Kong is out.
King Dong! Dongzilla is here!
I love it so much. Alright, I'm going to return Arbor Elf to my hand.
Stupid fucking
And
mono
untap.
reef dumb shit.
Yisan. I'm going to use my other 3.
Dude, we just got right.
Yeah,
do
do
that.
it again, getting an 8-drop this
I'm going to
time.
go get Crater Hoof Behemoth.
Does that give everything haste?
No, but everything already has haste.
God.
Or has already been in play.
Except for Kogla.
except for combat.
So with Max's second activation of his commander, he is in fact going to get Craterhoof Behemoth, and that's going to give each of his creatures +8/+8. Then he's going to go to combat, and this one takes a minute because he wants to figure out how to kill both Ajdin and me, and turn off Calvin's Serra Ascendant. He eventually settles on swinging 3 creatures at me, 3 creatures at Ajdin, and then he's going to use his Bane of Progress to attack Calvin. Calvin's going to block the Bane of Progress. This is going to kill his Serra Ascendant, but it's going to maintain his life total. Both Ajdin and I will die. Calvin is going to go to 30, and then Max is going to try to pass the turn to Calvin. Calvin has a response. He'll tap for 1 white mana, and he's going to cast an Enlightened Tutor. That'll have him searching his library, and he wants to tutor for another tutor, Wishclaw Talisman, put it on top of his library, and then he wants to untap and draw his card for turn. Max will also untap. In Calvin's first main phase, he's going to tap for 1 mana in order to cast that Mana Vault that he kept in his opening hand. After that, Calvin's going to tap that same Mana Vault for 3 mana, and he's going to use 2 of the floating mana, leaving 1 floating after he uses it in order to cast another piece of fast mana, Grim Monolith. After that, he'll tap his Godless Shrine for black and use the floating mana off of his Mana Vault in order to cast the Wishclaw Talisman. Now that the Talisman is in play, he's going to tap Grim Monolith for 3 colorless as well, and then use one of them to activate the Wishclaw Talisman. Max is going to take control of the Wishclaw Talisman, and Calvin's going to search for a card and cast it immediately. It just winds up being a Wheel of Fortune, which Calvin has to use the rest of his mana in order to cast. Max has a quick response. He'll just cast Veil of Summer since he's going to be pitching his hand anyway, and then both of them are going to discard their hands, draw 7 cards, and Calvin didn't find anything meaningful, so he's just going to pass the turn right back to Max, who will untap, draw his card for turn. He's going to play a basic forest as his land for turn, and he really doesn't have to do a lot here. He's just going to head into combat and swing all of his creatures sideways at Calvin. Calvin's at 30. This damage equates to a lot more than 30, so Calvin will die, leaving Max as the winner of today's game. Alright, let's wrap this game up really quick, just talk about how the game went, and I want to start with myself first and foremost because I made the most play errors out of everyone in the game, and they were pretty glaring, I would say. Some of them were pretty glaring, some of them were a little less obvious, but that's what we're here to talk about. The first one I want to get at is, if you're screaming in the comments right now, those Thopters have haste. You're correct. I knew that, and actually the first turn that I didn't use the Thopters to attack, I was thinking I was going to use them for mana, per Galazeth's ability that makes them into mana rocks, for instants and sorceries. They lose haste at the end step, so and they're creatures, so they have summoning sickness. I couldn't have done that, and I realized that during Max's turn, after I had skipped out on my first attack with the Thopter. That was a pretty big fumble. I think throughout the entirety of the game, I maybe missed out on between 5 and 7 damage, and you know, me attacking Max with those in conjunction with maybe Ajdin picking a better attack with his Korvold for his first swing, we could have put Max out of the game. But that was a serious play error, I would say, but it was not the most glaring thing that people probably noticed from the video. One of the big ones was the deflecting swat on the lightning bolt. I deflecting swatted a lightning bolt that was targeting a Yisan, the way Max won the game, and switched it to a Collector Oof. And at the time, it made complete sense to me because I knew that I was not going to win the game with a Collector Oof in play. It was almost impossible for me to generate the mana needed to execute my combo. The issue here is that Max was just going to win because he has Bane of Progress, so I was going to be shut down either way. Now that I know Bane of Progress is in the deck, and I should have known that intuitively in the first place, but I just didn't even think about it, that play won't ever be made again, because Max can just hose me either way. It didn't make sense. It was kind of a king-makey play to deflecting swat the lightning bolt when you think about it in that light. And then, were there any other serious glaring play issues? I did brain freeze myself, and that was kind of a numbers game. I knew that my graveyard was not thick enough for me to go off if I had gained access to my pieces, so I was kind of banking on just not hitting Underworld Breach and fueling myself a little bit more while I still had access to my artifact mana, because he was activating his Yisan on 2, and I knew he was going to get Collector Oof, so I had to respond to it right then and there. Was that the right play? I don't know. Definitely, if you're a cEDH player, definitely let me know what you think. I'm edging towards like there's no way that was right, but at the time I was just like, let's try some stuff. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty far behind this game. That's how I went. That's what my deck did. Let's talk about Ajdin, because he kept a really good hand. He kind of lost to the die roll. If he had been able to go before Max and all his Stax effects, namely Thorn of the Amethyst, Ajdin probably would have popped off pretty quickly. He had a lot of the pieces that he needed. He had like a turn 2 Korvold. He had the gas. Ajdin was just a victim to the die roll, and that's kind of how these Turbo Nos decks seem to work. He's like, well, I don't know if this is like, maybe it's a Turbo Nos deck, maybe it's not. It's definitely a food chain deck, and it's definitely an aggressive food chain deck. It wants to go very quickly. He wasn't able to go very quickly, so he kind of just fizzled out of the game. His Korvold was very threatening, but he used a really bad first attack when he attacked me, and I could just block with a Thopter. He should have definitely attacked Max, and he knows that. We talked about it after the game. But that's what happened with Ajdin. He didn't do too much. Calvin was fairly interactive. That lightning bolt was very good, and he did a lot of tutoring, but at the same time, like, he was right after Max, so that Thorn, I'm sure, stopped a lot of his game plan. And but there's really no way to talk about Calvin because Max was able to pull so far ahead that Calvin was nearly defenseless based on what Max was doing. So he kind of just fell out of the game. He outlasted the rest of us, and that Sierra, what is the name of that card? That Sierra, you know what I'm talking about, Sierra Ascendant, the 6/6 with flying. He was probably supposed to attack with it. I think he missed an attack that he could have made, and I'm sure he had some logical thinking as to why he didn't do that, like maybe he wants to block Galazeth Prismari if I decide to swing at him or something. But maybe he was supposed to attack Max, I'm not sure. And then Max, there's not a whole lot to say, he just did the thing. He crop rotationed for a Gaia's Cradle, he used his Yisan a bunch, he found Seaborn Muse, he did that really sweet play with the Yisan into the 3-drop Manglehorn to destroy his own Thorn of Amethyst, to pod his Manglehorn using an Eldritch Evolution into a Seaborn Muse to start to use his commander every turn. That was really sweet. And all in all, I think this game is really cool. I'm really glad we uploaded it, but in the future, look forward to some tighter cEDH gameplay. If you have any cEDH decks that you guys really want to see play, definitely let us know in the comments. I'm playing Yuriko right now, and Galazeth is a deck I'm working on. All the guys are working on different decks, so you expect to see more, but if you have one you really like, or even a brew you want us to try, let us know, and we'll take a look at it. That said, that's everything you guys should need to hear from me today. So that's, I guess I'm saying that's all I have for you. Thank you so much, and as always, thanks for... How do I end these videos?
I wanted my opponents to have artifacts, Max. Alright, Max.
Dockside? Dockside.
This
They
card
feel
is
good?
dumb now.